hello, and welcome to Will Cain Country. My name is Kennedy. I will be in for Will. He is basking in the sunshine somewhere on a secret assignment. He will be back next week, and this week has been absolutely horrible for 80s kids. I mean, this has been a devastating week, and the news I'm about to give you, if you haven't heard, is going to make it so much worse. First, Malcolm Jamal Warner, Theo Huxtable from The Cosby Show, the last good one from The Cosby Show. He lost his life when he got sucked out to sea in a powerful rip current in Costa Rica. He was there with his family. Absolutely tragic, a horrible way to go. A surfer rescued his 8-year-old daughter who had to learn of her dad's fate. And then, less than 3 weeks after his final concert, his farewell concert in his home of Birmingham, England, Ozzy Osbourne also passed away at 76. We all thought Ozzy was going to live forever. He had so many evolutions. He was so interesting and loving and honest and so committed to his art. I was talking to Jim Norton about going to that final show in Birmingham, and he said it was very emotional because everyone there knew. They all knew it was Ozzy's last show. That was not a gimmick. That was not a stunt. Little did we know that just a few short weeks later, that would be the end of his life, surrounded by family whom he loved so dearly and so deeply associated with his family and with changing music forever. We just learned a few moments ago that, and I hate to break this to you if you haven't heard it already, Hulk Hogan died today at the age of 71. According to reporting from Fox Sports and TMZ, he died of cardiac arrest and was discovered in his home in Clearwater, Florida. He was starting a new wrestling league, Real American Freestyle, which was amateur freestyle wrestling with real shooters. And you talk about a towering legend who not only defined wrestling and brought in an entirely new generation of wrestling fans and stayed on the scene and challenged what wrestling could be. He has passed away at 71. I got to interview Hulk in 2005. When he had launched Hogan Knows Best with his family. And, you know, like Ozzy and the Osbournes, because the Osbournes launched on MTV in 2002, this was one of those times that for people who only knew Hulk from wrestling and from TV and movies, you got to see a softer, gentler, funnier side with his family that he also adored. You know, and there are these parallels with our heroes. They live so hard and so intensely, and there is such enormous pressure to keep up the content production and the output and to meet as many people as you possibly can, because when you are fans of people like that, people like Hulk, they are in your heart forever, and people will do whatever they can to get a glimpse, to get a handshake. His hands were massive. He was a huge guy. He was not a jabroni. Hulk, every time I met him, was kind, welcoming, funny, cool, down to earth, very deep voice, and seemingly ageless, even though he had some problems with his hips and legs. What an incredible person to launch himself and wrestling into a stratosphere that not only has it not retreated from, he was still, even though he was starting his own league, still a brand ambassador for WWE, which he had been through all the incarnations since the early 80s. But 71, especially for a professional athlete like that, it's way too soon, especially when you've got such a push for health and longevity and people living better lives into their later decades, you know, as we all look to hopefully push into our next century. 71 feels way too young. Joining me now is a board-certified addiction medicine specialist, also a media icon. You got to know him on Loveline, and you love him on his podcast and commercials and TV shows. His partnership with Adam Carolla that has triumphed through the years. Dr. Drew Pinsky joins me now. Welcome, Dr. Drew.
Kennedy, I have so many thoughts. It is odd. It's you and I as sort of 80s and 90s kids, through our MTV years. You and I stood in the street after Gutfeld the other day and started shaking our heads about the sort of land we have covered. We're like time travelers. And the fact that some of the icons from that era are passing I'm disturbed like you are. However, you mentioned, there's so much in what you packed into that opening remark. You mentioned jabronis. I believe the Iron Sheik is still with us, right? And yet Hulk is gone.
Yes.
That's heartbreaking.
Yes, for wrestling fans, there's rarely justice. But this, this was the kind of news where that popped up in a text thread, and I thought it was fake. And, I was talking with Dan and some of the other producers here at Will Cain Country, and, we just started looking it up, and it was confirmed. New York Post, TMZ, Fox Sports, and it's kind of shocking. But as a physician, what stands out to you when you hear the news about a professional wrestler succumbing to cardiac arrest at 71?
And I'm hearing that he may have had a surgery recently and whatnot, so this could be somehow related to a complication of that, and maybe it was a pulmonary embolus, but we don't know exactly what the cause of death was. But let me just speculate a little bit and point out that people, the wrestlers use steroids, anabolic and androgenic steroids, and that does cause accelerated heart disease. Period. It just does. I don't know if you knew Doug Brignoli from out here in Southern California, but he was a multi-universe, Mr. America participant, and he made a big deal about getting the vaccine and getting the boosters in the social media, and announced, if I'm dead, then you have your answer about how how much the vaccines can contribute to heart disease. He dropped dead of heart attack 2 months later.
Oh, God.
So the combo, it's possible that spike protein and steroids are really a big problem here.
Yeah, that's always been my worry about the vaccine. Unfortunately, we can't unring that bell. For those of us who were vaccinated and boosted, I got 2 shots total. And then after I got COVID the second time, which was worse than the first, after my second shot, I'm like, no more. This is doing nothing. It's not making me healthier. I became incredibly skeptical of the entire process. Is there something, is there some interaction that we're not being told about or that is not being researched? And because it seems like there are a lot of younger men. Like I've heard just in the last couple of months, men that I either know personally or am one step removed from through friends, spouses and a brother's friend, guys in their early 50s dropping dead of heart attacks who are not only healthy, we're talking about bodybuilders, triathletes, ultra runners. Could it be the vaccine?
It's really hard to tell. You sort of tilted at the fact that most of us have been vaccinated and most of us have had COVID. So how do you tease out the contributions of each is very difficult. And we've gone through this insane period where just to ask the questions that might implicate a vaccine, you can't ask the question. And that's so crazy. There is no doubt that we are seeing myocarditis in young males from the vaccine. No doubt. And myocarditis, this idea that, it's mild, that's insane. Whenever my kids got a viral illness when we were growing up, the one thing I was worried about was myocarditis. It's a dreadful condition. It's a dangerous condition, and it can lead to cardiomyopathies later and need for heart transplant if you're young enough. So there's that side. There's also the fact that spike protein seems to accelerate coronary artery disease, both from the illness and from the vaccine. You asked, are there things we're not being told? I'll tell you something that's a dirty little secret. Long COVID, all this energy around long COVID, it exists. But real long COVID usually resolves the fogginess, the fatigue, all that stuff. But the vaccine long COVID persists. And so what people are seeing who are treating long COVID is mostly long vaccine.
So when you say long vaccine, is that a reaction to the vaccine itself, or is that a reaction to having the vaccine and getting COVID?
No, it's clearly the vaccine, because people are getting sick the next day after getting boosted. In fact, I have a friend who was a very successful producer writer who's been disabled when he got after his first booster, and that was many years ago, and he is still struggling. I've seen lots of this, and I've never seen anything quite like that from COVID. COVID, there's lots of other stuff. I do believe we're going to see neurological things and a lot of chronic progressive problems from COVID, but it's different than the long vax thing, which is this shortness of breath and fatigue and depression and sleep disturbances, and it is disabling.
So there are a lot of men who, in their quest for health and fitness, they do take steroids, and most of them do it under a doctor's supervision. Is there an extra level of worry? And maybe it's just more people are open to talking about it because there are so many reels on Instagram, and there are so many influencers who are like, this is what I do, and it's a pretty easy protocol. Should men who have had COVID, who've gotten the vaccine, who are taking steroids, should they see a cardiologist?
Oh, you should get at least a calcium score for sure to see if there's any. By the way, I had a case of COVID. I took the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. I had a dreadful reaction to it.
Oh, no.
And I went from a calcium score of 0 to suddenly having some coronary disease. And I thought, oh, that has to be the spike protein to have come up so quickly. But yes, we should all, if you have any question at all, get a calcium score to see if there's anything further that should be investigated.
And is that just a blood test?
It's a CAT scan. It's it's a low energy CAT scan, and insurances cover it. It's something easy to get, and it sort of helps us guide how aggressively we should be looking at the heart. And there's, we also have the issues of cancer and the natural killer cells being down. That may be COVID. It also may be a vaccine. Dr. Soon Shong is going around advocating for something to try to increase our natural killer function, because they're the scavenger cells that look for cancer, and if their function is down, cancer goes up.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the fact that you're seeing a lot of young people dying suddenly. It's not yet quite reflected in the data. People argue about whether or not, in fact, we're seeing more deaths at a younger age, or is this just some sort of cognitive bias? We're looking for it because we're coming out of this era of vaccines and COVID. I'm sorry, Kennedy, I drifted off from your question. What was the actual question?
I was just asking about steroids because.
Oh, so let me answer that. So there's sort of three ways to think about it. Bodybuilders and wrestlers are chemists. They use massive amounts of steroids. That's not what you're talking about. And they are usually not getting it from doctors. They're getting it flown over from Europe. They're sharing recipes amongst themselves.
Yeah.
In bodybuilders particularly, it's wild. And look, those guys don't live very long. You just look at the outcomes. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is testosterone replacement therapies. Now, I'm a huge fan of hormonal replacement therapies for men and women to try to restore a gland that's not functioning. What do we do when the thyroid stops functioning? We give exogenous thyroid. Mm-hmm. We should do the same thing for the ovaries and the testes. Now, the problem is, how do you dial in what is a physiological level? Because the range in men is from 200 to 1200. So it's hard to know exactly what men should get. And most men inch it up a little bit, and probably that's okay. And then there are men that push it even higher. They get testosterone replacement therapy. They want to feel it and see it. I'm not sure that's physiological. And as someone myself with prostate cancer, I can't take it. We know that it accelerates prostate cancer. I'd love to take it. I would have taken it were I not a prostate cancer patient, but I can't.
So what is the correlation between, let's just focus on Ozzy and Hulk, and what is their legacy, and how should people be internalizing this stuff?
Well, you know what? The one thing, Kennedy, I think you'd appreciate this because you've met both of them, and so have I, and their family too, which is I find interesting. Like Hulk Hogan's daughter is. I did a couple of radio shows there. She was great. And by the way, I worry for her right now. She's probably devastated by this, but whether you're talking about Jack and Kelly or Hulk's daughter or Ozzy and Hulk, when you go in a room alone with any of these people, the one thing I came away with, and people talk about charisma and things like that, I came away with from all of them with this feeling of oh my God, they're so substantial. These are substantial people, and they're open with big hearts, like real humanity there. Did you get that same feeling?
Yes, and that's, that's what hurts so much when someone you look up to, because you never heard about Ozzy or Hulk being jerks.
No.
When they spoke in public and the way they comported themselves, especially with their families, they had something greater that they were working toward always. And there was a sense of completion for them when they had families. And I was talking to Rod Asa for a Daily Mail piece I'm writing that comes out today about Ozzy. And he was telling me he lived for and loved his family utterly.
Yeah.
And I think that is such an incredible example for people, especially men, who feel just this epidemic of loneliness.
Oh, well, that's a gigantic topic, but let me just confirm what you're saying. And I know Jack the best of that family, and Jack is a substantial person, a great guy, has had one of the greatest recoveries, starting at a remarkably young age, of any patients I've treated. And it's because of Sharon and Ozzy. And, all these people became, because of reality shows, they become a little bit sort of cartoon characters in people's minds. I want you to disavow of that. These are rich human beings, substantial human beings. And Ozzy, poor Ozzy, when I first met him, he was having what I've seen so many times, particularly with celebrities with addiction, mishandled by my profession. A lot of stuff that happened to him happened because of doctors handing him a bunch of drugs. And when I first met him, he goes, I have amphetamine-induced Parkinson's. And I thought, yeah, that's probably right, Ozzy. That is probably what you have. Ooh. And he lived well and fine with that for several decades.
Wow. I didn't know there was such a thing. I mean, I guess anything, I remember my mom went through chemotherapy for breast cancer in 1996, and they think that's what triggered her lymphoma 14 years later. Oh, yeah. But I want us to walk away from this with some joy and, optimism, looking toward the future and taking the showmanship that that these two men especially displayed, and, which was infused throughout their entire lives. And I think there is something to that. There is something to being joyful and loving and larger than life and performative that people can take away from their lives.
I was watching the Billy Joel documentary last night, and I had a similar kind of feeling about him. New feeling. I was not a Billy Joel fan per se, but a similar kind of a takeaway from people that had this incredible, rich talent and performed, and we all benefited.
Yes. And, still benefit. And it's interesting because people like that think, well, that was it. I had my time. And then there's this generational resurgence. And then the people who were their original fans are like, you know what? Screw it. I want to go see music again. I got to go see Billy Joel every night. So another person who has had a resurgence is Hunter Biden. And I want to play you a clip of something from the second podcast interview he has done recently. And this is dear old Hunter talking about dear old dad's Ambien use. Watch.
I know exactly what happened in that debate. He flew around the world, basically, in the mileage that he could have flown around the world 3 times. Yeah. He's 81 years old. He's tired as shit. They give him Ambien to be able to sleep. He gets up on the stage, and he looks like he's a deer in the headlights.
So, Joe Biden and his physician did not reveal on the list of 6 medications that he was allegedly prescribed that Ambien was on there. Obviously, that stuck with Hunter Biden. I don't think he's making that up. He tried to walk it back. What do you make of that statement as an excuse?
I have a lot to say. First of all, he's now saying he's so old, he's incapable of functioning. I mean,
or making his own medical decisions.
Well, first of all, I always wondered what that osteopath was doing there between the president and the Walter Reed physicians of the highest caliber. And I'm beginning to wonder, is it to get stuff like this? Is that why he was lurking around the White House? There's warnings all over Ambien. The elderly patients, certainly above the age of 75, should not be prescribed this medication because A, they fall, particularly if they have a Parkinsonian syndrome or any other musculoskeletal or neurological conditions. So falls and confusion are exceedingly common, so you don't prescribe it to these medications. And let's remind ourselves, if he is so far gone as the president, he's on Ambien, he gets a 3 a.m. call to make a big decision. God only knows what influences that decision will be under. He won't remember it. That's another part of Ambien. You become amnestic. He should not have been prescribed Ambien. The other thing, though, is he had 2 weeks to prepare for this debate. 2 weeks. Ambien is not lurking around for 2 weeks unless they continue to give it to him. And if so, why did they do that? That's crazy. Now, I do know that people use Ambien a lot for travel and whatnot, particularly with all the time zones. Not a great idea and not exactly inspiring confidence if the president of the United States is so impaired by it that he can't think. It's essentially on the record saying his cognition was off, and it was made worse by Ambien.
Yeah, and Hunter is making the case against his dad. Saying he's 81, he's old, he's tired. It's like, well, that was the issue that many voters had when they said they weren't going to vote for him again.
And borderline malpractice that he got. The reason, physicians can do anything. We can do anything we want with any medication. We are at our liberty to do that. That is what is the practice of medicine. But when there's a significant warning on a product not to prescribe to a certain population, and you choose to do it, and something bad happens, you're in malpractice territory now.
Yeah, well, I think that you could make that case for Dr. Kevin O'Connor on a number of fronts, particularly the malpractice that he foisted upon the country by not being honest about the former president's various conditions. So when Hunter Biden talks so lovingly about crack and how you make it and how clean it is and how healthy it is and how it's better for you than any drug on the street, any coffee in Starbucks, what did you make of that love letter?
It was wild. I mean, I understand what he's saying about making the free base crack, how you do it, you distill it out. But that doesn't mean the effect on the brain is somehow clean and not highly damaging and altering. And that little love letter to crack really worried me. Listen, Kennedy, the reality is when I look at somebody like Hunter Biden, when the illness progresses to the point that it progressed with him, it doesn't go back. The only way to remit that progression even further from where he had found himself is with treatment. And people in treatment, you hear a certain kind of language. I think we're all becoming a little more familiar with recovery language and the way people talk about their addictions when they have it. I see no evidence of that from Hunter. So whenever someone who has progressed to the point that he progressed, even if they have periods of abstinence, he claims he's had 5 or 6 years. God, I hope that's true. But when they start to behave in any way different, you have to assume they're back. You have to assume it. And then it doesn't just linger along. It accelerates back to where they left off. And so I have been worried about Hunter's survival for quite some time.
So when he's using the F word as much as he is, does that signal something to you as well?
Well, it's the agitation that worried me. He was very agitated. He also had something called the stare, which is when your upper eyelid is just a little above the iris, more than is physiologically normal. He had some of that. Now, it could have been rage or whatever, but there's very few things will really do that in a sustained way. So the other thing, though, as it pertains to the F word, it seems like the Democrats have been looking for a way to use that. I don't know if you saw Swalwell's videos. They were so cringy. It was unbelievable. So cringy. But Hunter was using it effectively, I would have to say. Yeah. And I agreed with 85% of what he said. So they have found their authenticity with Hunter. He's authentic. Yeah. He is authentically him. I love that about him. And I would say that's what they've been looking for. There it is, everybody. But there's some stuff that comes with it in his case particularly.
If you could, would you like to treat him?
No, I don't have a team assembled. I know where he should go. I'd be happy to tell people where, he needs to stay there for a while.
Where should he go?
Where should he go? Mm-hmm. You asking me that?
Yeah.
Well, there are several places. I think maybe some place like Cirque Lodge in Utah, some place where he has to go away for a while and when there's a great deal of care in the confidentiality. And he'd have to stay, 3 to 6 months, that kind of thing, I suspect, if he's in relapse. If he's somehow doing cognitive behavioral therapy and he's doing okay, who am I to say? But I just worry. I worry for this kid.
Well, that makes you a good person because he has not gotten as much empathy as you have. Very
well, you know what I really was scared
expressed.
For him?
What's that?
When we saw his attorney smoking weed out on the patio, I thought, oh my God, if he's around that, this is not going to go well.
California sober.
That does not go well, everybody. If you activate that medial forebrain bundle extraphysiologically, it will kick in. It may take a minute. It will kick in. I promise.
So scary. Dr. Drew Pinsky, thank you so much for all of your wisdom and grace. And, you bring so much to not only the broadcast airwaves and the ether, but to all of us who know you. So thanks again.
But Kennedy, I feel like we have been comrades this whole many decades. And I want you to know, I feel now like a time traveler. I don't know if you're ready to present yourself as such, but you can time travel with me and bring the wisdom of the past into the present, because we've seen a lot of bad ideas come and go and come and go. And a lot of them are back right now.
I know.
And I'd like to be here to warn everybody, these are bad ideas. We got a lot of bad ideas flying around.
We can succumb to cultural erosion. Be prepared. Dr. Drew, thank you.
You bet.
We're going to be back in moments with Gen Z cultural phenom Link Lauren. We're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about why no one talks to women anymore. And we'll talk about getting rad with one of the youngs. That's next on Will Cain Country. I'm Kennedy. You are in Will Cain Country. It's Kennedy filling in for Will. Joining me now is podcaster superstar Link Lauren. He's so young and fresh and scrubbed. He looks like an ad for a South Korean facial.
Well, great to be here, Kennedy. How are you doing?
Link, welcome to Will Cain Country. Always good to see you. So Time Magazine has released their list of the 100 most influential podcasters, and there are some glaring omissions on that list. What did you make of it?
Oh my gosh, I don't know who was on there. Joe Rogan, all these other people.
No,
I
Joe
mean,
Rogan
I don't
was
really
not
care.
on there.
Oh, well, then that's probably a mistake, because I feel like his endorsement of President Trump really mattered. I mean, we talked about that for months. Is Kamala going to go on Rogan? Is Trump going to go on Rogan? I don't really care about those lists. I feel like when it comes to the Time 100, it's a lot of like publicists and PR folks who push to get on that list. I saw some influencers were on that list, and I'm like, they don't even have that many followers. Who's their father?
Yeah, who are they
paying? How are they getting on?
Yeah,
exactly.
And I get Call Her Daddy was on there, but it's not as good as it used to be with Sophia. And it certainly didn't help Kamala Harris.
No, Kamala Harris, I didn't think that Call Her Daddy interview did anything for Kamala Harris. And the entire conversation was about abortion, which I felt like was a waste of time because the Dobbs decision already happened, right? This election, Kamala wasn't going to do anything to change what happened with the Supreme Court and the Dobbs decision. So I felt like it was sort of a waste of time. But I think Alex Cooper was so scared to get political on immigration and other issues, she just stuck to women. I don't know.
Yeah, but she didn't even get into the good stuff with her.
Well, I also feel like for someone like
that
Alex
would have been
Cooper,
the show to be like, okay, tell me about Willie Brown and Montel Williams.
Well, I feel like Kamala Harris, give her a couple of drinks, she can have a good time, but she was so trying to be this
I feel like Kamala Harris, give her a couple of drinks and it's 9 o'clock in the morning.
No, literally. Well, she wakes up and takes a bottle of aspirin in the morning, so that's her breakfast. But yeah, no, to nurse her hangover. I felt like Alex Cooper, too, with that podcast. There's so many other issues because my audience is predominantly women. Mm-hmm. They're like, abortion is not our top issue in this election, right? There's so many other things that go into being a woman and issues that we care about. And I feel like for Alex Cooper, maybe because she has like hundreds of millions of dollars and lives in a mansion, she's like, this is my most important thing I want to talk to Kamala about. But yeah, no, I don't care about these lists, these Time 100, whatever list. I feel like if you actually speak the truth and you're a real person, the chances of you getting on those lists is very slim.
And also the abortion cheerleaders are so creepy to me because it is such an incredibly personal and serious topic. And for people like Lena Dunham, remember when she was like, I wish I'd had an abortion. It's like, well, no one wants to touch you. And then you have Cynthia Nixon on a boat with a hat. It's supposed to be an ironic MAGA hat that says make abortion great again. And there were so many women who were fans of hers who were like, that is absolutely disgusting. You know, you are talking about, regardless of how you feel about it and what side of the issue you're on, that is an incredibly traumatic thing for a woman to go through. And to discuss it so flippantly, it's no wonder Gen Z voters, that is not primary at the top of their list, considering what's going on in their worlds today.
No, absolutely. I feel like Gen Z voters, really the thing they care about most is, can I buy a home? Am I ever going to be able to have an asset like that and have a home for myself? Am I going to be able to have a mortgage? And then wasn't there something that came out recently that you'll be able to qualify for a mortgage if you've been paying your rent? I know Pulte was talking about that and President Trump. So that's all really good for young people. But no, I don't ever hear from young people that abortion is their top issue anymore. But I feel like there are professional protesters who will show up and protest anything.
And when they're paid,
so it doesn't
absolutely.
really surprise me.
I mean, that's a great side hustle if you're trying to scrape together a few dollars to
Absolutely.
put that little mortgage down payment nut together. It's like just, it doesn't matter what it is. You can be pro-Palestine. You can be anti-climate change. Or you can be anti-Elon. Whatever the flavor of the week is. If the Soroses or whoever is going to pay you, then that's a great way to show up and make a slimy buck.
No, 100%. But also all these protesters come out of the woodwork in the spring and summer because it's good money, it's warm weather out. And then in the winter, of course, they're not out there protesting. That's what I felt when I saw the Columbia protest when they were out on the quad. They waited until it got warm and sunny out in New York City to go protest and do these sit-ins on the quad. They don't want to be out there in the elements. They can't handle that. They're fair weather protesters.
What do you make of Columbia agreeing to a $200 million settlement for Jewish students who had their civil liberties clearly violated by some of the pro-Hamas protests?
Well, I think it's incredible news, and I know the White House is working really hard on that. I think it's great news because there should be some payment for these people who suffered on campus. But my overarching thesis is this, right? If you send your kid to an Ivy League school these days, they are probably going to be indoctrinated to hate their country. They're going to become woke, progressive, liberals who think, everybody can be put into buckets of colonizer and colonized. So I don't even know if you should even be going to these Ivy League universities that we used to hold in high esteem. I've been saying go to a trade school, go learn a skill that's actually going to pay your bills. Be an electrician, a carpenter, a plumber. Those folks are going to be in demand, really in demand over the next few years, especially with AI, because young people don't even know how to screw in light bulbs, a lot of them. So I think a plumber in New York City is going to be making millions in 10 years.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. And, if they start in a trade in their early 20s or even their late teens, and they get certified, they're going to enter the workforce making far more than, their friends who are lingering in college for degrees that have no return on investment. They're not going to have any student debt. And if they start putting away a couple $100s a month, by the time they retire, they will have millions of dollars.
Absolutely. I feel like I've been saying this, and I know I say it as a joke, but it's actually quite serious because at NYU, I don't know what the hell some of these kids are majoring in. We don't need more like queer theater majors or Latinx literature majors. We're going to need people who can build and do things with their hands and get shit done. And so that's why I think young people should go learn a skill, learn a trade. And why rack up all this debt going to a 4-year university and then you're going to come out probably indoctrinated having learned nothing? I mean, when I was in college, my teachers were ridiculous. Some of them would stroll in hungover and their Birkenstocks. They were adjunct professors.
Where did you go to college?
You don't need that. I went to NYU.
Oh, yes.
So I managed to come out not super liberal and indoctrinated, which created a whole host of issues for me there. But I feel like the teachers, they don't even really know what they're doing. So go save yourself the time, save yourself the money. But I will say, because some people in my comments were like, well, what if you're a doctor or a lawyer? If you have to go to a 4-year university to learn some skill, do that. But if you don't have to, go do something that's actually going to pay your bills and don't come out with all of this debt.
Yeah, the debt trap is, that's like working at Starbucks and dripping in Gucci. Like you can't afford it. It's like your lifestyle, you cannot support it. It's the same thing with a private college where if you're coming out with, over $200,000 in debt, you're never going to dig yourself out of that hole. And, I'm always shocked, and there are people like, well, the federal government is taking advantage of 18-year-olds who don't know what they're signing. And it's like, do they have parents? Do they have counselors? Are there other people in their lives? It's like, if they're going to college, presumably they can read. And, every 17-year-old knows what happens when you turn 18, and they can list the 25 countries off the top of their heads where you can drink legally at 18. So if they can do that and accept all the theoretical responsibility, then they can read the paperwork and figure out what they're signing. But also, with over 3,000 colleges and universities to choose from, go to a cheaper one. Is it really going to make that much of a difference? I've
I'm
sat
here to
in
tell
meetings
you.
and hired people and looked at resumes for years. And to me, there's nothing more off-putting than someone with a degree from Harvard. I just assume they're a snob.
Well, that's what I feel too. If you're hiring someone and they come in now and their resume says Columbia University or Harvard, you almost want to move it to the bottom of the stack because you're like, I don't want this person. What if you're some woke, progressive, pro-Palestine person who was wearing a keffiyeh out on the quad last week? You know what I'm saying? So I feel like now you want someone who's hardworking, who can get things done. There's no prerequisite anymore that going to a four-year university means you're going to be better at doing the job, right? It's almost like hire the person who has the hustle to get things done and then let them learn.
And if they've proven the hustle when they're in school, because now, like with ChatGPT, you don't even have to study anymore. Unless you have a professor who is making you sit there with a blue book and write out the answers to essays for a test, for a midterm, it's all ChatGPT. And that's everyone is doing it, and that's how professors grade. That's how professors will put together a syllabus. Everything it's just AI talking to AI. So unless you can demonstrate that you have your own brain that you challenge on a daily basis through hard work and hustle, I tend to agree with you there.
Yes, and if you think you want to just be an influencer and that's going to be easy too for all you kids graduating high school, it's not. So we're not telling you to forfeit college in lieu of just going and becoming an influencer either, but I'm saying go try and find something you're passionate about and pursue it and get it done. And I really do believe going to a trade school or a technical school is the best way to go. If you don't know what you want to do, don't go rack up 4 years of debt, okay? And all of this, the kids need to socialize and college is going to socialize the kids. The kids are on their phones anyway, okay? If you can't figure out how to get socialized in this world, that's on you. You shouldn't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's for a lot of people, it's a stopgap. It's just, it's a place to kind of hang out for 4 years. Very few people know what they want to do when they're 18, but I think you're right. It's better to learn how to build houses or learn how to weld or be a plumber or an electrician when you're 18, because at any time, and I went to college when I was 28, I graduated when I was 32. I didn't go until I was ready to go. And at that point, I was a voracious learner, and I couldn't wait to throw myself into every subject. I already had a stable career in radio and TV. So, there's time to go back to college. You can always go back. Right. But if you start the earning earlier, you will set yourself up for success and be so many steps ahead from the people that you are competing with. Now, speaking of competing, there's a lot of chatter on social media from young women who are really, really frustrated because they go out dressed to the nines. They look incredible. They are fit and viable, and they're constantly complaining because they say men won't talk to them. What is going on?
Well, I've been hearing from so many women, they say they go out, the guys don't come up to talk to them, and then there are these articles in the New York Post and other publications, they're doing studies on this. I think some of this is a little bit of a backlash from the Me Too movement. A lot of guys, when they're polled, they say they're scared to go up and talk to these girls because they've had experiences where they go up and they chat with a woman at a bar, and the girl says, "You're a creep, get away from me, I'm here with my friends." So I think some of the women are going to have to come to the middle too and play ball and play game, and then the guys, they're going to have to man up too and keep shooting their shot. I mean, it's a marketing game, right? It's a numbers game. If you want to find a woman, you can't be a wallflower and sit over there with your beer in the corner. You're going to have to still get in the game. But I do think there are a lot of these guys who are scared and nervous now because they've had almost cancellations just for going up and talking to a girl.
Well, see, I was talking to one of my coworkers who's tall and beautiful, and she's been really frustrated on all the apps. So we were out at the opening of a bar here in Midtown a couple months ago, and she was telling me how frustrated she is. And then there was this cute guy who was smiling at her. And so I walked up to him like, "Hey, what's up?" and just started talking to him. And she was like, you can do that? I'm like, of course you can. Just say, hey, how's it going? You know, it's like, you don't want anything from anyone. You're just like, you live here? Are you a New Yorker? You know, do you like the Yankees? Is there, will you drop on your head if you like the Mets? What's wrong?
My advice, men, women, shoot your shot. You never know, okay? People are lonely and they're horny too. So shoot your shot. If you're out at a bar, you don't know what's going to happen. But sitting over there in the corner and being a shy wallflower is not going to help you. And I understand the guys are nervous because the girls might say you're a creep. Get away from me, #me too. But you got to keep shooting your shot. And I do think there are a lot of women out there, we're not allowed to say this anymore, they want a strong, masculine guy to come along and show some gumption. And these men are going to have to find their balls again and man up and ask these girls out. Keep going, okay?
And also, don't judge a guy if he's an electrician or a plumber, because he will always be able to provide for you and he will always be able to fix things. And, you know, I hate this idea that women are driven by a guy's bank account. Because, you know, especially if he's younger, he's got so much upside potential.
No, I don't think there's that old saying, right? If you marry for money, you pay for life. So I definitely don't think you should be driven by a guy's bank account whatsoever. And like you said, if you're young and you're dating, do not marry for money. Okay, hustle and focus on your career and try and find someone to meet you in the middle. Find someone for companionship, someone to have fun with who can be your best friend. But no, you certainly shouldn't marry for money. I feel like in the karmic universe, that'll come back to bite you.
Yeah, and also if that's the only thing you're looking for, you are ignoring so many wonderful traits and compatibility. And, you know, that's the other thing about meeting someone in person. Like, there is something to be said for each other's atoms, like bumping into each other and, you know, creating this chemistry and magic and alchemy. And you cannot discount that.
100%. I used to have this rule when I was dating and on dating apps in New York. If I met a guy and was talking to a guy, I would not meet up with them in person unless we had a quick phone call. I want to talk to you for 60 seconds, 2 minutes. Let's just chat on the phone. And some guys, they're like, are you crazy? You want to talk to me on the phone? Because especially with Gen Z, if you say you want to have a phone call, they're scared to pick up the phone.
Oh, yeah.
But I would not want to go out with a guy unless I heard their voice and spoke to them for a minute, because I can tell in a second if I actually want to meet up with you. And especially in person, if I meet someone in person, I know in a heartbeat if I'm interested in them, okay? It's so much easier in person. You can ascertain, feel the vibes, feel the pheromones. I can't believe we're having this conversation on Will Cain
Country. That's absolutely right.
True.
So let me ask you this. So who's the problem? Because I remember when I started on MTV in 1992, one of my fellow VJs was like the first grunge VJ. That's how the New York Times, they did an article on Steve Isaacs. He's the first grunge VJ. He was a super nice guy. But he pulled me aside and he said, here's how the world works. Women are crazy. Men are dicks. And I was like, oh, interesting. And I was like, well, I don't feel crazy. Is that still the case? Because I hear horror stories from both men and women about the other sex. And I'm like, okay, the way the guys tell it, they're worried that women out there are a bunch of bunny boilers. And the way women tell it, you know, guys are either a very limp version of Harry Styles or they're trying to be Andrew Tate. And there's no middle ground.
Absolutely. I feel like the hottest thing a guy can be is comfortable in his own skin. Also, don't be a little beta male bitch boy. That's my rule, okay? Don't be a little beta male. We don't want some like guy who's trying to be cool and be a hipster, like you said, like Harry Styles, and be gender fluid and bending. No, okay? But be comfortable in your own skin. A guy who is confident and not trying too hard is probably the best thing you can be. But also, you mentioned, you know, bunny boilers and Glenn Close and Fatal Attraction. You still have to shoot your shot. She might end up being crazy. She might end up outside your door burning your car on fire. But you still have to try. You know what I'm saying? You got to risk it for the biscuit and figure out what's going to happen. So
I don't know if the biscuit's always worth it when it's that insane. So, Link, I look at the state of politics, and it looks like on the Republican side, J.D. Vance has the best shot, at least at this point, of, you know, rising from this team of rivals and, you know, more than likely becoming the nominee in 2028. What do the Democrats have? I mean, it feels like the party is very lost. If their two big triumphs are Hunter Biden and Zohran Mamdani.
Well, my dream 2028 ticket as of last night is Hunter Biden and Jasmine Crockett. Okay, we can do Crockett and the Crackhead or something like that. I'm going to think of the branding, but I want Hunter Biden and Jasmine Crockett.
That's the portmanteau. Crackett 2028.
And I don't care who's on the top of the ticket. I hear Jasmine likes to be on top just from what I hear. But no, I don't care who's on the top of the ticket, but I want Hunter Biden, I want Jasmine Crockett to run for president. But also on a serious note, I don't know who the heck the Democrats are going to run in 2028 because they have no identity. Nobody has common sense policies. You could have a great guy. You could give Gavin Newsom some lines. You could dress him up. He's greasy. He's got the smile, the veneers, the hair. But he's still so radical. And as we saw in this last election, people said, you know what? We want common sense. Gavin Newsom is fighting with the DOJ currently to keep men and women's sports. He's fighting to keep kids exploited for child labor on cannabis farms. You know what I'm saying? These are tough sells outside of California. And like Pete Buttigieg, he's really thirsty. Pete Buttigieg is so hungry to run for president. Is he going to appeal to a large swath of the population? He's just as radical, has a terrible record as Secretary of Transportation, didn't show up in East Palestine for weeks. Yeah. So I don't see any good front runners whatsoever, except Hunter Biden, just for entertainment value.
I would like to see AOC and Gavin Newsom on a debate stage just so they can destroy each other.
Here's my thing. I don't think Gavin Newsom is even going to make it out of a primary on the debate stage because he just crumbles when you press him. If you apply pressure to Gavin Newsom...
Same with AOC. I don't think AOC has been properly challenged.
No. AOC is very selective with the media she does, with the interviews she does, because she's had some clunkers. AOC, we can all sit there. I do it every day. I do it for a freaking living. We can sit here on our phones and run our mouths and be confident and have our points and talk our talk, but it's a whole different thing to sit down and be pressed. And AOC, she doesn't do a ton of media where anybody asks her difficult questions. And the time she has, she crumbles very quickly. Gavin Newsom crumbles very quickly. I feel like Gavin Newsom has really been spiraling the last few months in general. He doesn't look well in his videos. He can't keep his story straight, as we saw with the ICE raids and everything going on with that. He just was sweating and a mess, and he couldn't keep it together. And then when people were overtaking freeways, he went to a Napa Valley fundraiser and was sipping wine, sort of like when he shut down his state and went to French Laundry. So he just has poor decision making, and I don't think that's something you can really teach. I don't think you can teach someone to make good executive decisions. I think Gavin Newsom has some executive functioning issues.
Well, and as a resident of Pacific Palisades, I'm absolutely disgusted at his lack of response, and same with Karen Bass at the wildfires, because there are tens of thousands of people who are displaced, and all they're talking about is these 15-minute cities and building low-income apartment buildings where people should be rebuilding their homes, their lives, and their communities. But these absolute narcissistic socialists in California are going to stand in everyone's way.
Wow. No, I have several friends who were also affected by the Palisades fire, and they find Gavin Newsom to be disgusting too. I have one friend who's quite liberal, and she's now come around to hating Gavin Newsom and hating the Democrat Party because of what she went through with
Malibu,
the fires.
Pacific Palisades. That was the hotbed of big money Democrat donors, and they are done with the whole thing. So I hope to see California politics change. I hope to see you again very soon, Link Lauren. Where can people find you on your podcast?
So you can find me. My podcast is called Spot On with Link Lauren. We had Sean Spicer on yesterday. We're talking about the Ambien and Hunter Biden. Sean Spicer is a freaking comedian. I love that guy. But thank you for having me, Kennedy. Seriously.
Link, you're absolutely great. This is Will Cain Country. We'll be back with the cultural hot pot of critical issues that you need to discuss, including the death of Hulk Hogan. We'll get into it as a team right here on Will Cain Country. I'm Kennedy. Hi, it's Will Cain Country. I'm Kennedy, filling in for Will Cain, who will return in just a few short days. It's already Thursday. You've only got Friday without him, and then Monday, he's back in action, tan, rested, and ready. So we have all of that to look forward to. Let's bring in Dan and Patrick, because gentlemen, I have to. I know, we all miss Will Cain. Not as much as we miss Ozzy Osbourne and Hulk Hogan. Were you both shocked to learn of Hulk Hogan's passing this morning?
Patrick.
Devastated.
Yeah.
Absolutely devastated.
Big wrestling fan.
Yeah.
So Patrick, tell me what he has meant to your life and your fandom.
I mean,
It's I got into wrestling a little bit later in life just because I had some idiot cousins that were really into it, and I always rejected them.
Idiots.
So, but like getting into it afterwards,
Sorry.
it was like going back and like looking at the history of everything. And I mean, the man literally could be on Mount Rushmore twice with Hulkamania and his heel turn, Hollywood Hogan. So it's pretty crazy. And
That's
and
what
just,
heel turn means.
Yeah.
It's when
It
you
just
go from a baby face to a bad guy.
It just clicked.
Exactly.
Wow.
Like it has to happen in wrestling. Someone cannot be a baby face forever. John Cena has
Did The
made
Rock do
many
that?
heel turns.
The Rock did do it. He's bounced back and forth, but his last iteration was
So
the heel turn.
let me ask you guys a question. I don't know much about wrestling. Did he end up a good guy or bad guy when he was
I think he's still bad.
still bad?
now. Yeah.
But good in our hearts.
We love him. We love him. He's a friend of the program. So, yeah.
I went to his bar once in Clearwater, Florida. It was very fun.
Hulk Hogan?
Yeah. He has a bar in Clearwater outside Tampa.
I love Clearwater.
It's like a karaoke type bar.
A lot of Scientologists
He goes there.
there.
He went there all the time. Yeah, a lot of Scientologists. Yeah.
My kids
Oh, sorry.
got me this
Patrick, go ahead.
little Hulk Hogan action figure
Wow.
years ago. So he's always looking over us and looking down. So.
Yeah, but I was saying at the beginning of the show, Patrick, it is a tough week for Gen Xers. You know, it's like Theo Huxtable, Ozzy Osbourne, Hulk Hogan in 1 week. It's too much for our hearts.
Did you have a relationship MTV wise with Ozzy? Did you interview him?
I didn't interview Ozzy,
Yeah.
but it was really cool because in 1992, so we were still in the middle very much of grunge. So it was nonstop videos from Nirvana, only a few from Pearl Jam because they got to be all precious. Soundgarden.
No,
and
Eddie
of course,
Vedder, Precious?
Yeah. And of course, Metallica. And that's when Mama, I'm Coming Home and No More Tears came out from Ozzy Osbourne.
Dang.
And he was like ruling it. And all of the grunge and metal artists who were, having their career-defining moment in 1992, Ozzy's like, yeah, I influenced all of you. And this is like my fourth go-round on the carousel. And just wait, because in 10 years, I'm going to come back with the Osbournes. I'm going to be bigger than all of you combined. And it will seal my place in the rock star celebrity pantheon that has since not been challenged.
That show was so good, the Osbournes.
It was great.
Genius. Whatever showrunner thought of that.
So
genius.
I interviewed Rod Asa, who was my former VJ manager at MTV. And so he went from managing the VJs and our schedules to talent development. He was sitting in his house one day, homesick. He was watching Cribs, and Jack and Kelly Osbourne were on. And he was like, they would be great on TV. So he took a meeting with Sharon Osbourne, and they started talking. And Rod was like, you know what? Your whole family has to be on TV. Like, there is a show here. So he went to their house in Beverly Hills, this big, like, French, provincial, beautiful mansion. And he sat in the kitchen for 2 hours. No one talked to him. Ozzy Osbourne was going in and out of the kitchen, rifling through the candy drawer, watching History Channel. Kelly would come in. Ozzy and Kelly are fighting. The dog's pooping on the floor. And he's like, what the hell am I doing here? Finally, Sharon comes down. And she's like, oh, Ozzy, have you met Rod? And he's like, didn't you wonder who I was? And Ozzy's like, I didn't give a F who you were. And that's, but he was looking around going, this is incredible. So they shot a bunch of stuff. They got enough together for a pilot. No one wanted to show Ozzy the pilot because they were all scared he was going to say no. So they made Rod sit in a room in Ozzy's den, in this black den, and watch the 22-minute pilot. And Rod said that Ozzy didn't laugh the entire time. He didn't move the entire time. He didn't breathe the entire time. So he was like, we're screwed. And then at the end, Ozzy goes, I'm the effing Prince of Darkness. You're going to ruin me. And then
turned him into a dad.
3 months later, they're walking down the street in Beverly Hills, Sharon, Ozzy, and Rod. And a group of 12 and 13-year-old girls came running up to him, screaming his name. And he's like, what the hell is going on here? So he pulls everyone inside Chanel to hide from the girls. And he's like, what is happening? And Rod's like, your show premiered. It's #1 in the country. And he looks at Sharon. He's like, what show?
I mean, it opened him to a whole different generation.
Yes.
I was born in the late 80s. I didn't know much about, his band and Ozzy and all that stuff. I knew the music, but about him, really. And then you kind of look into it and learn more about him, and it's fascinating.
Yes.
And how crazy he was. I don't think people my age and younger know how crazy he really was back in the day.
But, it's like to live as hard as he did and survive all the substances he put in his body and to triumph. He was so funny. And he had that show with Jack where he and Sharon and Jack would watch video of ghosts and things like that. It was hysterical. But he, to survive all that and then to lose him just a couple weeks after his final concert was so sad.
Wait, did you ever go to Ozfest? I used to go to Ozfest all the time when I came to
No,
Connecticut.
but I loved how successful it was.
So good. I saw some of the best bands back in the day.
Yeah, Judas Priest and Metallica. Like, they got the biggest metal bands in the world to play Ozfest because everybody loved Ozzy Osbourne. Everybody loved Hulk Hogan. It is a hard day for wrestling fans, for pop culture fans, and even if you weren't there in their heyday, their names, their legacies mean something. Patrick and Dan, thank you for making an incredible show.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've been the best.
Well, this is Will Cain Country. As I said, he will return on Monday. Thank you for your attention and kindness. I'm Kennedy, and for Will, signing off.